An introduction to part 2. Yoga Vasishta is structured as a series of discussions. It all starts when Sutikshna the sage asks Agastya which way was better for liberation, through work or through contemplation. As a response to which sage Agastya expounds the interaction between the dad Agnivesha and his son Karunya when the son has stopped performing all his daily duties because he is confounded by the scriptural injunction of doing the work or action on one hand, and the same scripture mentioning about abandoning all actions in order to attain liberation on the other hand. Agnivesha the dad speaks of the interaction between Valmiki and Arishtanemi, two sages, and Valmiki is illustrating the story of Rama where he was instructed on the timeless wisdom of self-knowledge by sage Vasishta. Part 2 on the behavior of the seeker, the story of Shuka. Vishwamitra said, O Rama, you are indeed the foremost among the wise, and there is really nothing further for you to know. However, your knowledge needs confirmation, even as the self-knowledge of Shuka needed confirmation from Janaka before Shuka could find the peace that passed understanding. Rama asked, Holy One, pray tell me how it was that Shuka did not find peace in spite of his knowledge, and how he found it later. Vishwamitra said, Listen, O Rama, I should duly narrate to you this soul-uplifting story of the born sage Shuka, the son of Vedavyasa, who is now seated next to your father. Just like you, Shuka also arrived at the truth concerning existence after deep contemplation of the evanescence of the world. Yet, because it was self-acquired knowledge, he could not positively affirm to himself this is the truth. He had, of course, arrived at the state of extreme and supreme dispassion. One day, this Shuka approached his father Vedavyasa and asked him, Sir, how did this diversity of world creation came into being? And how will it come to an end? Vedavyasa gave a detailed answer to this question, but Shuka thought, all this I knew already. What is new in this? And was not impressed. Vedavyasa also sensed this, and hence he said to Shuka, My son, I do not know anything more than this, but there is the royal sage Janaka on earth who knows more than this. Kindly approach him. Shuka thereupon came to Janaka's palace. Informed by the palace gods of the young Shuka's arrival, Janaka ignored him for a week, while Shuka waited patiently outside. The next week, Janaka had Shuka brought into the palace and waited upon by dancers and musicians. Shuka was unmoved by this too. After this, Shuka was ushered into the royal presence, and Janaka said, You know the truth. What else shall I tell you now? Shuka repeated the question he had asked his father, and Janaka too gave him the answer his father had given. Shuka said, I knew this. My father told me this. The scriptures also affirm this, and now you declare the truth, and that is, this diversity arises on account of mental modification, and it will cease when they cease. Thus, when his self-knowledge had been confirmed, Shuka attained peace and remained in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Vishwamitra said to the assembled sages, Like Shuka, Rama too has gained the highest wisdom. The surest sign of a man of the highest wisdom is that he is unattracted by the pleasures of the world, for in him even the subtle tendencies have ceased. When these tendencies are strong, there is bondage. When they have ceased, there is liberation. He is truly a liberated sage who by nature is not swayed by sense pleasure, without the motivation of fame or other incentives. And I pray that the sage Vasishta should also instruct Rama, that he will be confirmed in his wisdom, and we too may be inspired. That instructions will surely become the greatest wisdom, the best of all scriptures, for it is imparted by an enlightened sage to a qualified, dispassionate student. Vasishta said, I shall surely accede to your request. And, O Rama, I shall now impart to you the wisdom which was revealed to me by the divine creator Brahma himself. Rama said, Holy sir, Kindly tell me first, why was Vedavyasa considered not liberated while his son Shuka was considered a liberated sage? Vasishta said, "O Rama, countless have been the universes that have come into being and that have been dissolved. In fact, even the countless universes that exist at this moment are impossible to conceive of. All this can immediately be realized in one's heart, for these universes are the creation of the desires that arise in the heart, like castles built in the air. The living being conjures up this world in his heart, and while he is alive, he strengthens his illusion. When he passes away, he conjures up the world beyond and experiences it. Thus there arise worlds within worlds, just as there are layers within layers in a plantain stem. Neither the world of matter nor the modes of creation are truly real. Yet, the living and the dead think and feel they are real. Ignorance of this truth keeps up the appearance. O Rama, in this cosmic ocean of existence, beings arise here and there who are equal to others, and others who are different from yet others. This Vedavyasa is the 23rd in this stream of creation. He and other sages will attain embodiment and a disembodiment again and again. In some, they will be equal to others, and in others, unequal. In this embodiment, Vedavyasa is indeed a liberated sage. Such liberated sages also are embodied countless times, and they assume relationships with others, and sometimes they are equal to others, and sometimes unequal in their learning, behavior, etc. Vasishta began the second day's discourse. As is the effort, so is the fruit. This is the meaning of self-effort, and is also known as divine fate. When afflicted by suffering, people cry, "Alas, what tragedy!" or "Alas, look at my fate," both of which mean the same thing. What is called fate or divine will is nothing other than the action or self-effort of the past. The present is infinitely more potent than the past. They indeed are fools who are satisfied with the fruits of the past effort, which they regard as divine will, and do not engage themselves in self-effort now. If you see that the present self-effort is somewhat thwarted by fate or divine will, you should understand that the present self-effort is weak. A weak and dull-witted man sees the hand of providence when he is confronted by a strong and powerful adversary and succumbs to him. Sometimes it happens that without effort, someone makes a great gain. For example, the state elephant chooses, in accordance with an ancient practice, a mendicant as the ruler of a country whose king suddenly died without leaving an heir. This is certainly neither an accident nor some kind of divine act, but the fruit of the mendicant's self-effort in the past birth. Sometimes it happens that a farmer's effort are made fruitless by a hailstorm. Surely, the hailstorm's own power was greater than the farmer's effort, and the farmer should put forth greater effort now. He should not grieve over the inevitable loss. If such grief is justified, why should he not weep daily over the inevitability of death? The wise man should of course know what is capable of attainment by self-effort and what is not. It is, however, ignorance to attribute all this to an outside agency and to say that God sends me to heaven or hell, or that an outside agency makes me do this or that. Such an ignorant person should be shunned. One should free oneself from likes and dislikes and engage oneself in righteous self-effort and reach the supreme truth. Knowing that self-effort alone is another name for divine will. We only ridicule the fatalist. That alone is self-effort which springs from right understanding, which manifests in one heart, which has been exposed to the teachings of the scriptures and the conduct of holy ones. Vasishta continued. O Rama, one should, with a body free from illness and mind free from distress, pursue self-knowledge so that he is not born again here. Such self-effort has threefold root and threefold fruit: an inner awakening in the intelligence, a decision in the mind, and a physical action. Self-effort is based on these three: knowledge of scriptures, instructions of the preceptor, and one's own effort. Fate or divine dispensation does not enter here. Hence he who desires salvation should divert the impure mind to pure endeavor by persistent effort. This is the very essence of all scriptures. The holy ones emphasize, persistently tread the path that leads to the eternal good. And the wise seeker knows, the fruits of my endeavors will be commensurate with the intensity of my self-effort, and neither fate nor a god can ordain it otherwise. Indeed, such self-effort alone is responsible for whatever man gets here. When he is sunk in unhappiness, to console him, people suggest that it is his fate. This is obvious. One goes abroad by undertaking a journey. One appeases one's hunger by eating food. None of this happens on account of fate. No one has seen such a fate or a god, but everyone has experienced how an action leads to a result. Hence, right from one's childhood, one should endeavor to promote one's true good by a keen, intelligent study of the scriptures, by having the company of the holy ones, and by right self-effort. Fate, or divine dispensation, is merely a convention which has come to be regarded as a truth by being repeatedly declared to be true. If this God or fate is truly the ordainer of everything in this world, of what meaning is any action, even like bathing, speaking, or giving, and whom should one teach at all? No, in this world, except a corpse, everything is active, and such activity yields its appropriate result. No one has ever realized the existence of a fate or a divine dispensation. People use such expressions as "I am impelled by fate" or "divine dispensation to do this" for self-satisfaction, but this is not true. For example, if an astrologer predicts that a young man would become a great scholar, does that young man become a scholar without study? No. Then why do we believe in divine dispensation? Rama, this sage Vishwamitra became a Brahmarishi by self-effort. All of us have attained self-knowledge by self-effort alone. Hence renounce fatalism and apply yourself to self-effort. Rama asked, Lord, you are indeed the knower of truth. Please tell me, what do people really call God, fate, or Devam? Vasishta replied, the fruition of self-effort by which one experiences the good and evil results of past action is called fate, or Devam by people. People also regard that as fate or Devam, which characterizes the good and evil nature of such results. When you see that these plants grow out of this seed, it is regarded as an act of this Devam. But I feel that fate is nothing but the culmination of one's own action. In the mind of man are numerous latent tendencies, and these tendencies give rise to various actions, physical, verbal, and mental. Surely one's actions are in strict accordance with these tendencies. It cannot be otherwise. Such is the course of action. Action is non-different from the most potent among latent tendencies. And these tendencies are non-different from the mind, and the man is non-different from the mind. One cannot definitely determine whether categories like mind, latent tendencies, action, and fate are real or unreal. Hence the men of wisdom have alluded to them symbolically. Rama asked again, Holy Sir, if the latent tendencies brought forward from the previous birth impel me to act in the present, where is the freedom of action? Vasishta said, Rama, the tendencies brought forward from past incarnations are of two kinds, pure and impure. The pure ones lead you towards liberation, and the impure ones invite trouble. You are indeed consciousness itself, not inert physical matter. You are not impelled to action by anything other than yourself. Hence you are free to strengthen the pure latent tendencies in preference to the impure ones. The impure ones have to be abandoned gradually and the mind turned away from them little by little, lest there should be violent reaction. By encouraging the good tendencies to act repeatedly, strengthen them. The impure ones will weaken by disuse. You will soon become absorbed in the expression of the good tendencies, in good actions. When thus you have overcome the force of the evil tendencies, then you will have to abandon even the good ones. You will then experience the supreme truth with intelligence that rises from the good tendencies. Vasishta continued, the cosmic order that people refer to as fate, Devam, or Niyati, and which ensures that every effort is blessed with appropriate fruition, is based on omnipresent and omnipotent omniscience, known as Brahman. By self-effort, therefore, restrain the senses and the mind, and with the mind that is one-pointed, calmly listen to what I am going to say. This narrative deals with liberation. Listening to it with other wise seekers who are assembled here, you will realize that Supreme Being where there is no sorrow nor destruction. This was revealed to me by the Creator Brahma himself in a previous age. Rama, the omnipresent omniscience or the cosmic being, shines eternally in all beings. When a vibration arises in that cosmic being, Lord Vishnu is born. Even as a wave arises when the surface of the ocean is agitated, from that Vishnu, Brahma the Creator was born. Brahma began to create the countless varieties of animate and inanimate, sentient and insentient being in the universe. And the universe was as it was before the cosmic dissolution. The Creator saw that all living beings in this universe were subject to disease and death, to pain and suffering. In his heart there arose compassion, and he sought to lay down a path that might lead living beings away from all this. He thereupon instituted centers of pilgrimage and noble virtues like austerity, charity, truthfulness, and righteous conduct. But these were inadequate. They could bestow only temporary relief from suffering on people and not final liberation from sorrow. Reflecting thus, the Creator brought me into being. He drew me to himself and drew the veil of ignorance over my heart. Instantly, I forgot my identity and my self-nature. I was miserable. I begged of Brahma, the Creator, my own father, to show me the way out of this misery. Sunk in my misery, I was unable and unwilling to do anything, and I remained lazy and inactive. In response to my prayer, my father revealed to me the true knowledge which instantly dispelled the veil of ignorance that he himself had spread over me. The Creator then said to me, "My son, I veiled the knowledge and revealed it to you so that you may experience its glory. For only then will you be able to understand the travail of ignorant beings and to help them." Rama, equipped with this knowledge, I am here and I will continue to be here till the end of creation. Vasishta continued. Even so, in every age, the Creator wills into being several sages and myself for the spiritual enlightenment of all. And in order to ensure the due performance of the secular duties by all, Brahma also creates kings who rule justly and wisely over parts of the earth. These kings, however, are soon corrupted by lust for power and pleasure. Conflict of interest leads to wars among them, which in turn gives rise to remorse. To remove their ignorance, the sages used to impart spiritual wisdom to them. In days of yore, O Rama, kings used to receive this wisdom and cherish it. Hence, it was known as Raja Vidya, kingly science. The highest form of dispassion, born of pure discrimination, has arisen in your heart. It is superior to dispassion born of circumstantial cause or an utter disgust. Such dispassion is surely due to the grace of God. This grace meets the maturity of discrimination at the exact moment when dispassion is generated in the heart. As long as the highest wisdom does not dawn in the heart, the person revolves in the wheel of birth and death. Please listen to my exposition of this wisdom with a concentrated mind. This wisdom destroys the forest of ignorance. Roaming in this forest, one undergoes confusion and seemingly interminable suffering. One should therefore approach an enlightened teacher and by asking the right question with the right attitude, elicit the teaching. It then becomes an integral part of one's being. The fool asks irrelevant questions irreverently, and the greater fool is he who spurns the sage's wisdom. He is surely not a sage who responds to the vain questions of a foolish questioner. O Rama, you are indeed the best among all seekers, for you have duly reflected over the truth and you are inspired by the best form of dispassion. And I am sure that what I am going to say to you will find a firm seat in your heart. Indeed, one should positively strive to enthrone wisdom in one's heart. For the mind is unsteady like a monkey, and one should then avoid unwise company. Rama, there are 4 gatekeepers at the entrance to the realm of freedom, moksha. They are self-control, spirit of inquiry, contentment, and good company. The wise seeker should diligently cultivate the friendship of these, or at least one of them. Vasishta continued, with a pure heart and receptive mind, and without the veil of doubt and the restlessness of the mind, listen to the exposition of the nature and the means of liberation. For not until the Supreme Being is realized will the dreadful miseries of birth and death come to an end. If this deadly serpent, known as ignorant life, is not overcome here and now, it gives rise to interminable suffering, not only in this, but in countless lifetimes to come. One cannot ignore this suffering, but one should overcome it by means of the wisdom that I shall impart to you. If you thus overcome this sorrow of repetitive history of birth and death, you will live here on earth itself, like God, like Brahma, like Vishnu. For when delusion is gone and the truth is realized by means of inquiry into self-nature, when the mind is at peace and the heart leaps to the supreme truth, when all the disturbing thought waves in the mind stuff have subsided, and there is unbroken flow of peace, and the heart is filled with the bliss of the Absolute, and thus the truth has been seen in the heart, then this world, this very world, becomes an abode of bliss. Such a person has nothing to acquire, nor anything to shun. He is untainted by the defects of life, untouched by its sorrow. He does not come into being nor go out, though he appears to come and go in the eyes of the beholder. Even religious duties are found to be unnecessary. He is not affected by the past tendencies which have lost their momentum. His mind has given up its restlessness, and he rests in the bliss that is his essential nature. Such bliss is possible only by self-knowledge, not by other means. Hence one should apply oneself constantly to self-knowledge. This alone is one's duty. He who disregards holy scriptures and holy men does not attain self-knowledge. Such foolishness is more harmful than all the illnesses that one is subject to in this world. Hence one should devoutly listen to the scripture which leads one to self-knowledge. He who obtains the scripture does not again fall into the blind well of ignorance. If you want to free yourself from the sorrow of samsara, receive the wholesome instructions of sages like me and be free. Vasishta continued, in order to cross this formidable ocean of samsara, one should resort to that which is eternal and unchanging. He alone is the best among men, whose mind rests in the eternal, and is therefore fully self-controlled and at peace. He sees that pleasure and pain chase and cancel each other, and in that wisdom there is self-control and peace. He who does not see this sleeps in a burning house. He who gains the wisdom of the eternal here is freed from samsara, and he is not born again in ignorance. One may doubt whether such unchanging truth exists. If it does not, one comes to no harm by inquiring into the nature of life. Seeking the eternal will soften the pain caused by the changes in life. But if it exists, then by knowing it, one is freed. The eternal is not attained by rites and rituals, or by pilgrimages, nor by wealth. It is to be attained only by the conquest of one's mind, by the cultivation of wisdom. Hence everyone, gods, demons, demigods, men, should constantly seek, whether one is walking, falling, or sitting, the conquest of the mind and self-control, which are the fruits of wisdom. When the mind is at peace, pure, tranquil, free from delusion or hallucination, untangled and free from cravings, it does not long for anything nor does it reject anything. This is self-control, or conquest of mind. One of the four gatekeepers to liberation which I mentioned earlier. All that is good and auspicious flows from self-control. All evil is discerned by self-control. No gain, no pleasure in this world or in heaven is comparable to the delight of self-control. The delight one experiences in the presence of the self-controlled is incomparable. Everyone spontaneously trusts him. None, not even demons and goblins, hates him. Self-control is the best remedy for all physical and mental ills. When there is self-control, even the food you eat tastes better, else it tastes bitter. He who wears the armor of self-control is not harmed by sorrow. He who even while hearing, touching, seeing, smelling, tasting what is regarded as pleasant and unpleasant is neither elated nor depressed. He is self-controlled. He who looks upon all beings with equal vision, having brought under control the sensation of pleasure and pain, is self-controlled. He who, though living amongst all, is unaffected by them, neither feels elated nor hates, even as one is during sleep, he is self-controlled. Vasishta continued. Inquiry, the second gatekeeper to liberation, should be undertaken by an intelligence that has been purified by a close study of the scripture. And this inquiry should be unbroken. By such inquiry, the intelligence becomes keen and is able to realize the supreme. Hence, inquiry alone is the best remedy for the long-lasting illness known as samsara. The wise man regards strength, intellect, efficiency, and timely action as the fruits of inquiry. Indeed, kingdom, prosperity, enjoyment, as well as final liberation are all the fruits of inquiry. The spirit of inquiry protects one from the calamities that befall the unthinking fool. When the mind has been rendered dull by the absence of inquiry, even the cool rays of the moon turn into deadly weapons, and the childish imagination throws up a goblin in every dark spot. Hence, the non-inquiring fool is really a storehouse of sorrow. It is the absence of the inquiry that gives rise to actions that are harmful to oneself and to the others, and to numerous psychosomatic illnesses. Therefore, one should avoid the company of such unthinking people. They in whom the spirit of inquiry is ever awake illumine the world, enlighten all who come into contact with them, dispel the ghost created by an ignorant mind, and realize the falsity of sense pleasures and their objects. In the light of inquiry, there is realization of the eternal and unchanging reality. This is the supreme. With it, one does not long for any other gain, nor does one spurn anything. He is free from delusion, attachment. He is not inactive, nor does he get drowned in action. He lives and functions in this world, and at the end of a natural life, he reaches the blissful state of total freedom. The eye of spiritual inquiry does not lose its sight even in the midst of all activities. He who does not have his eye is indeed to be pitied. It is better to be born as a frog in the mud, a worm in the dung, a snake in a hole, but not to be without this eye, the eye of inquiry. What is inquiry? To inquire thus: who am I? How has this evil of samsara, repetitive history, come into being? Is true inquiry. Knowledge of truth arises from such inquiry. From such knowledge there follows tranquility in oneself, and then there arises the supreme peace that passes understanding and the ending of all sorrow. Vichara or inquiry is not reasoning or analytical analysis. It is directly looking into oneself. Vasishta continued. Contentment is another gatekeeper to liberation. He who has quaffed the nectar of contentment does not relish craving for sense pleasures. No delight in this world is as sweet as contentment which destroys all sins. What is contentment? It is to renounce all craving for what is not obtained unsought and to be satisfied with what comes unsought, without being elated or depressed even by them. This is contentment. As long as one is not satisfied in the self, he will be subjected to sorrow. With the rise of contentment, the purity of one's heart blooms. The contented man who possesses nothing owns the world. Satsanga, company of the wise, holy, and enlightened persons, is the last gatekeeper to liberation. Satsanga enlarges one's intelligence, destroys one's ignorance and one's psychological distress. Whatever be the cost, however difficult it may be, whatever obstacles may stand in one's way, Satsanga should never be neglected. For Satsanga alone is one's light on the path of life. Satsanga, gain the company of the wise, holy, and enlightened persons. He is indeed superior to all other forms of religious practice like charity, austerity, pilgrimage, and the performance of religious rites. One should by every means in one's power adore and serve the holy men who have realized the truth and in whose heart the darkness of ignorance has been dispelled. They who, on the other hand, treat such holy men disrespectfully surely invite great suffering. These four: contentment, satsanga, the spirit of inquiry, and self-control. These four gatekeepers are the four surest means by which they who are drowning in the ocean of samsara can be saved. Contentment is the supreme gain. Satsanga is the best companion to the destination. The spirit of inquiry is the greatest wisdom, and self-control is supreme happiness. If you are unable to resolve to all these four, then practice one. By the diligent practice of one of these, the others will also be found in you. The highest wisdom will seek you of its own accord. Until you tame the wild elephant of your mind with the help of these noble qualities, you cannot have progress towards the supreme, even if you become a god, demigod, or a tree. Therefore, O Rama, strive by all means to cultivate these noble qualities. Vasishta said, "He who is endowed with the qualities that I have enumerated thus far is qualified to listen to what I am about to reveal. You are indeed such a qualified person. Only he would wish to hear this who is ripe for liberation. But this revelation is capable of leading one to liberation even if one does not desire it, just as a light is capable of illumining the eyes of even the sleeping person. As when the truth that a rope is a rope and not a snake is seen, and the fear generated by the misunderstanding that it is a snake disappears, the study of this scripture frees one from sorrow born of samsara. This scripture consists of 32,000 couplets. The first section, known as Vairagya Prakaranam, or the chapter on dispassion, imparts to one knowledge of the true nature of life in this world. Its careful study purifies the heart. This section consists of 1,500 couplets. The next sections, known as Mumukshu Vyavahara Prakaranam, concerning the behavior of a seeker of liberation, consists of 1,000 couplets. In this, the qualification of a seeker are described. After that comes the Utpatti Prakaranam, section on creation, which consists of 7,000 couplets. In it are found many inspiring stories which help illustrate the great truth, which is on account of the interplay of the false ideas of this and I, the universe which has never truly been created appears to have been created. The next is Sthiti Prakaranam, section on existence, and it consists of 3,000 couplets. With the help of stories again, the truth concerning the existence of this world and its substratum is revealed. After that comes the Upashanti Prakaranam, section on cessation, which consists of 5,000 couplets. By listening to this, the deluded perception of the world comes to an end, leaving only a trace of ignorance. Lastly, the Nirvana Prakaranam, section on liberation, which runs to 14,500 couplets. A study and understanding of this section destroys one's fundamental ignorance, and when all kinds of delusions and hallucinations are set at rest, there is total freedom. Though still wearing a physical body, he lives as if he is free from it, free from all cravings and desires, attachments and aversions. He is free from samsara. Here and now, he is free from the demon known as egotism. He is one with the infinite. Vasishta continued, "One who sows the seed of the knowledge of the scripture soon obtains the fruit of the realization of the truth. Though human in origin, an exposition of truth is to be accepted. Otherwise, even what is regarded as divine revelation is to be rejected. Even a young boy's words are to be accepted if they are words of wisdom. Else, reject it like straw even if uttered by Brahma the Creator. He who listens to and reflects upon the exposition of this scripture enjoys unfathomable wisdom, firm conviction, and unperturbable coolness of spirit. Soon he becomes a liberated sage whose glory is indescribable. The sage of infinite vision sees in the one undivided intelligence countless universes, for he has realized the magic of Maya, or cosmic illusion. He sees the infinity in every atom, and therefore he is unattached to the rise and fall of the ideas of creation. Hence he is ever contented with what comes unsought. and he does not run after what has been taken away from him, for which he does not grieve. This scripture is easy of comprehension as it is richly embellished with a number of interesting stories. One who studies this scripture and contemplates its meaning has no need to undertake austerities, meditation, repetition of a mantra, and so on. For what is greater than liberation which is granted by a study of this scripture? One who studies the scripture and comprehends its teaching is no longer deluded by world appearance. When one sees that the yonder deadly snake is a lifelike painting, one is no longer afraid of it. When the world appearance is seen as an appearance, it does not produce either elation or sorrow. It is indeed a great pity that even when such a scripture exists, people seek sense pleasures which lead to great sorrow. O Rama, when a truth that has not been personally experienced is expounded, one does not grasp it except with the help of an illustration. Such illustrations have been used in the scripture with a definite purpose and a limited intention. They are not to be taken literally, nor is their significance to be stretched beyond the intention. When the scripture is thus studied, the world appears to be a dream vision. These indeed are the purpose and the purport of the illustrations. Let no one of perverted intellect misinterpret the illustrations given in the scripture. Vasishta continued, parables have only one purpose, to enable the listener to arrive at the truth. The realization of truth is so vital that any reasonable method used is justified, though the parables themselves may be fictitious. The parables themselves are only partly applicable to the truth thus illustrated, and only that part is to be grasped and the rest ignored. Study and understanding of the scriptures with the help of illustrations and of a qualified teacher are necessary only till one realizes the truth. Again, such study should continue till the truth is realized. One should not stop short of complete enlightenment. A little knowledge of the scripture results in confusion, worse, confounded. Non-recognition of the existence of supreme peace in the heart and assumption of the reality of imaginary factors are both born of imperfect knowledge and the consequent perverted logic. Even as the ocean is a substratum of all the waves, direct experience alone is the basis for all proofs. The direct experience of truth as it is, that substratum, is the experiencing intelligence which itself becomes the experiencer. The act of experiencing and the experience. That substratum is the experiencing, experiencer, and the act of experiencing. The experiencing alone is the fact. Yet, in a state of non-understanding, this experiencing seems to have a subject, the experiencer, and the object, that which is experienced. Wisdom that is born of the spirit of inquiry dispels this non-understanding, and the undivided intelligence shines in its own light. At that stage, even the spirit of inquiry becomes superfluous and dissolves itself. Even as movement is inherent in air, manifestation as a subtle perceiving mind and the gross objects it perceives is inherent in this experiencing intelligence. And the perceiving mind, on account of ignorance, thinks, I am such and such an object, and thence becomes that. That object is experienced only in the subject, not elsewhere. Till such time as the wisdom arises directly in you, take recourse to the knowledge transmitted by the great teachers. When you receive such knowledge from the great teachers, your behavior will mirror theirs. And when thus you grow in the virtuous qualities, your wisdom will unfold within you. Wisdom and emulation of the noble behavior of holy ones thrive on each other. End of part 2 on the behavior of the seeker.